Hello and welcome to Katie's studio. Today we're going to be painting an orange tree in a vase on a plate. So that is what we will be doing today. Supplies, I'm going to be using Duncan Concepts glazes. I'll let you know the colors as I use them, but these are the Duncan Concepts glazes. I have a pretty large plate here. I should have known the exact dimensions, but I believe it's 18 inches. I'll have to measure that one day. Okay. And this is a painting I already did in watercolors. So now I'm going to do, instead of watercolors, I'm going to do it in glaze. I'm going to make them in glazes instead. So I'm going to draw. I already pre-drew this in pencil. I'm going to pre-draw again for you in permanent marker so it's easier for you to see. I did decide to turn my paper sideways here, and this vase is still not quite right. I need to adjust that more. And so, yeah, so I decided to turn it. Okay, one thing I have done before, if this is hard, one thing we did as a practice when I taught the watercolor class is when you draw a vase, you want to divide it in half and you want both sides to be equal, or a mirror image of each other. So when I do today's class, I don't think I'm going to put all the designs in the vase, but I can decide towards the end of the class how it's going and what it looks like and whether or not I want to do that. So here are just some example vases. Now, if you're into cheating a little bit, you can use a pair of scissors and cut one of these out to make both sides equal. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using your materials to your advantage. And in fact, see, and I keep on erasing this one side. So if I would have just done that, I probably would have been better off. I think that's, and also try not to worry about it being perfect. I know it can be hard, but try not to worry about being perfect. So I'll draw it out in pencil. When I draw it in pencil, I'm not going to worry about every single piece of it. I didn't draw any of the oranges or any of the leaves yet, because I'm just going to paint those on. I'm going to do a little shadowing on the vase. Then I'll do the main part of the plant, and then I'll do the oranges and the leaves. And I might add some stems after I do one layer of oranges and leaves. This is not a realistic painting, and I did, this was created by an artist, and I didn't write down her name either because it was in my last link. I messed up a lot today. It's been a rough morning. So we're going to try this. So anyways, first I'm going to draw this out for you so you can see how to draw it out yourself. If you're drawing on a glazed plate like I am, it is easy to do with, you can do this exact same project on a canvas or or in watercolors. You'll just your colors will just be a little bit different than mine. So the first step is to draw out the vase. So when I draw the vase again, I want both sides to be symmetrical. I'm going to do this in permanent marker on a scratch piece of paper just so you have a better view. So I'm going to try to start, keep in mind where the middle is, and I can even do a center line if that helps. So I'm going to start with two little lines. And then I did a little half circle here. And this angle I want to match all through. I'm going to have two more of those on top. So I want to match them this way. And now I'm going to do my little arch. So up, and then I'm going to have a little flat on top. And now this is where it's hard. I'm going to try to make this a mirror image of this one. And again, it's not too bad, it's not too good. That's why I normally wouldn't draw it out in permanent marker. But you can mess with that a lot. The other thing is the other thing you can do is use a piece of paper, cut it out, and then cut out half. And I can show you that as well. And I might do that really quick, but I might do that, mess around with that. And then you're gonna have your straight lines going up, and another band this way and this way. And that's a little bit smaller, but in my other one it's a little wider since I am planting a tree in it. And this is a little bit bigger, but That's okay because my plate, I'm extending all the way out into the edges. Now, when you do a tree, the biggest thing about drawing a tree is to make sure that you're always getting smaller and smaller, so by about a third. So what I mean by that is my first branch, I'm going to start off pretty thick, and I do want my lines to be somewhat organic. And then this is going to slowly get smaller and smaller. I can even do a little bit more of that. So my next branch coming off of this, it can be small, even smaller than a third, but I'm going to make it about a third smaller from whatever it's coming out of. And it's always going to get smaller. So what we'll make, I'll go ahead and mess up this for you and show you. If I do a branch that's bigger coming out of something that's smaller, then it's going to start looking less realistic. So if I do branches that are too big, that are getting bigger rather than smaller, that's how it's going to start to look unrealistic. So the pattern is very simple, but it's sometimes harder to do in reality. So I'm going to always have them getting about a third smaller. Okay, and then the other thing is you can put this other half circle right here, and this I want to be the opposite of this bottom one. So that's how I drew up my vase and my basic tree here. I'm not going to mess around with this too much. I try not to worry about but the idea of putting pencil down first is just to get the basic idea down, and the lighter you draw, the better. You just want it dark enough for you to see the basic idea. So that's that. I'm still a little bit not like 100%. I still feel like these two sides could be a little bit more even, and I think this one comes up a little high. I just want to edit that a little bit. So when you do this, let me get this a little lower here. And this might a little bit like, all right, I need to stop at some point. I think that's as good. This drives me nuts. When you work with glazes, anything I do in my anything I draw out in pencil will burn off in the kiln. But sometimes if you have too many oils or something on the plate, it can mess up with it in the kiln. So all that erasing in this corner hopefully will not cause a distortion on my plate. But yeah, the pencil can't handle the firing temperature, so it disappears in the kiln. The other thing is sometimes it can bubble, so if you put pencil super thick, sometimes you can see little bubble marks where your pencil was. So you want to be really light with pencil if you're glazing on a plate, but even if you're working with acrylic paints or watercolors, same thing. It looks better if you can't see those pencil marks. So the first thing I want to paint is my plate. I'm going to do this in mostly dark purple. I should have brought my white out. And I'm going to use a little bit of blue. So the plate, but I'm going to do it really, really, really light. And when I put this in the kiln, everything will get substantially, I'm dropping stuff. Okay. When you do this in the kiln, I didn't grab a paper towel, sorry. The way glazes work is when I put them in the kiln, everything does end up getting substantially lighter. So I always want to keep that in mind too. So I want to think about light source when I do this. I'm gonna have my light source. I usually have it come from this side, so I'm gonna keep that here. So I'm gonna always have a lighter ness on the right side, darker on the left side. And this is my Dunkin' Glaze dark purple. So I'm using a flat tip. This is number 10. And I'm gonna go around the Okay, and then I'm gonna do a little bit more, the same thing on this side. And down here. And then I want it a little darker on the left, so do a second layer here on the left. I chose purple on this because, oops, I went a little too much water. It kind of took away. I chose purple because purple is orange's opposite on the color wheel, and that way this purple pot will stand out against the orange of the tree. There, I could have also chosen, I think a red would have looked nice, and red would have been red's part of orange, right? So that would have been the opposite effect. Okay, now I'm going to blend that just a little bit. So I'm using a damp brush now, and going in here and just dragging. I switched brushes here. I'm using a flat number 8, just a little smaller. I'm taking off a little bit of the paint over here. I'm gonna go a little bit go a little bit darker right here. And I'm going right over my pencil lines, but I do want it to be darker on the left. So I'm not going to do much shadowing on the right. I'm going to use a damp brush to kind of drag that over a little bit. A little bit less. This is not a realistic looking orange tree. That is on purpose, so nothing needs to be completely realistic, but then making those highlights and stuff even on something that is a little bit that isn't realistic still looks really good. I want to move this white spot. I'm going to have it a little bit more over. My base is pretty good now, so I'm okay with where my base is, and I'm going to drag this purple, do even more. And that's why I'm not as, sometimes I try really hard not to have brush strokes. This one I'm not going to worry about having some brush strokes show. Okay. I'm just working on the shadowing a little bit more. Do a little bit of a white spot right here. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this in with purple. I might do a layer of brown on top of it, but I'm gonna fill that in. Okay, so that's all I'm gonna do. I actually didn't end up using any blue, which I'm okay with. The next thing I'm gonna do is my my tree, or the bark, the stems. I'm gonna use 2 shades of brown. This is called dark briarwood. Ooh. And then bright brown. I always like to use 2 shades of a color when I can. I think it ends up adding dimension without a ton of effort, and I didn't mean to have those touch, so just a little bit of both for now. I can always add more. And again, that dark brown will really take over the light brown, so I'm gonna stick, I've been enjoying this, the number 8. This is a Royal Clear brush. I'm gonna stick with that for now. And I should start with my lighter color. I have a little dark brown on my brush, but I'm mostly doing light brown. Go up this main stem first. And now, I'm gonna do that first. I am gonna also put, you know what? I am gonna put, before I do too much, I am gonna put a little bit of, I am gonna do a couple oranges. So for my oranges, I'm gonna use 3 colors. I'm gonna do some oranges and some leaves here. Not a lot. So for the orange, I'm doing really red, light straw, and just neon orange for my oranges here. I'm changing my mind here as I go. And then I want to use probably a round tip brush, which I don't have. Oh, we'll stick with this one then. What is this one? Number 8. This is a number 8 brush as well. So, and a lot of my red took over my orange, my paint palette. So let me make its own little pile here. All right. I do want to be careful with the yellow, and that red is really watery. So I want to be careful with the yellow, because yellow, they can make them look like they're almost like dying. So I don't want to do too many. And I'm going to try with this orange, yeah, this brush isn't. Do a little red in there. I'm going to make sure all of these oranges are kind of on top of something. And I might do 2 oranges, and I'm going to leave a little gap in between the oranges. I like the way that looks, actually. That was something they did with the watercolors I thought was kind of cool. Maybe a little yellow in some of them. I do want them to all be relatively the same size. I want them to be, they don't have to be exactly the same size, but I want them to be close. And there's not going to be a whole lot here in the center, but I want to put some. And I'm not worried about their origin branch yet. And in fact, like that was something I think that beginners like really overthink sometimes, is that you know, every single branch has to have every single orange has to have a branch going to it, and that's not true. You don't need to worry about that. You can have some that are just kind of, they will, people's eyes fill in that blank when they first look at it. And especially, again, because we're not looking for like a 100% realistic, but even when you're just glancing at a tree, you don't see every single, you don't see every single branch going to every single orange. So don't feel like you have to have one to every single one. Oops. I'm gonna do one more. So this is gonna be a little cluster of 3. I'm gonna take that red and kind of shadow a lot of these on that shadowy side, which would be the left. And that red is really watery, so I'm kind of curious how it's gonna come out of my kiln. There we go. You get a little bit more. I'm gonna do a few more. I don't want to do all of them yet because this is just for ones that are kind of in the branches. And we have one right here, right in the center. Whenever I do trees, they tend to grow as I go, which I'm okay with. They tend to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna stop there. Now I'm gonna add some leaves. I'm gonna just go back and forth between those 3 things. So the leaves I'm doing in Dunkin' Dark Ivy. Dark Ivy and Light Jade. Again, I like to have 2 colors on my brush when I can. You could also do, and when I say 2 colors, it could be the same green and you just add white to it and you have a little pile of lighter green. So it doesn't have to be that you buy 3 shades of green. It can be that you have one green, you have a little pile of green that you add a little white to, you have a little pile of green maybe that you add a little blue or yellow to. I don't always like to do just lighter or darker, but adding a little bit of yellow to green or adding a little blue to green can create that effect that I'm going for with these 2 shades. So I'm switching, I have this clear, number 8 again, and I'm going to add some leaves, and I'm focusing mostly on the leaves that I want right over the stem. Because there'll be a lot of leaves that are outside of this too. Okay. The leaves I'm not as worried about because I can do those right over the bark. So I'm not gonna worry about as much about having a lot of leaves. The oranges, I didn't want to be able to see the stem through the orange. So some of the leaves I'm gonna do right on top of this towards the end. So let me get a little bit more light green, light brown. And making sure I get smaller, following that pattern of just getting smaller and smaller. Oh, give me 1 minute. Sorry about that short, brief interruption. We have some people helping us on our yard today. So. And I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush, a round brush for some of these ends. This is number 3, this is a round edge. It's a really old brush, it's a little bit, And I did switch brushes, but I find the shape of the brush to matter more than the size. I think sometimes you get caught up in, oh, it has to be a really tiny, and this is a small brush, but it don't feel like you have to buy this like really expensive, really tiny brush. It's more about applying it's more about going really, really little pressure than it being super tiny. Because even with a tiny brush, you can make pretty thick brush strokes. But with a big brush, you can make pretty big brush strokes. So something with glaze that's different than watercolors or acrylics is they do tend to, the plate like sucks it up. So you can get the whole plate wet first. Some people like doing that. And I've done that before. I find I kind of like leaving it dry because then it ends up getting more glaze on it. But and I do usually have both browns on my brush, but I'm trying to focus more on the lighter brown than the darker brown right now. Okay, I'm going to switch to my thicker brush just for this part right here. A little bit around here. Okay. And now I'm going to add a few more that I haven't sketched, but I'm going to kind of wait. So I've pretty much have gone over all of my pencil lines now. So now I'm going to go a little bit, I'm going to go around with a little bit this dark brown. And since my shadow I'm trying to make come from the left, I'm going to focus these darker brown on the left because that's my shadow of where my light source is on the right. So I'm going to do a little bit of darker lines on the left side. And now I'm going to kind of go back and forth, and this is like an endless process here. So of going back and forth between adding leaves and adding oranges. You could add, you know, hundreds of oranges, really, even though it's a small piece. So you just have to kind of go back and forth on what you do. And even if I stopped here, it actually looks kind of cool right now. I definitely want to do more, but and I'm gonna do a couple more oranges, and then I want to go a little orange, and I can go in and add a little bit more orange to some of these, especially on that left side where I want the shadow. I'm gonna make some of these double oranges. I think I'm gonna go over my time today is my guess between. Something I remember our teacher telling me that is very valuable when doing something like this is it's all about creating patterns and creating variety together. So one of the patterns I want to create here is that I want the oranges to all be in the same size range. I don't want an orange the size of a quarter and an orange, you know, that's a dot. So I'm not going to have any of these be too small. Unless they're being covered up, but I'm not about the angle, you know, like this one's small, but it's behind another orange. So that pattern I want to follow of, you know, the size being close. But I want variety too. So I want some of them hidden more. I want some of them out in front more. I want some of them to have a little more yellow and a little more orange. And again, that's another pattern is the color. I want the color to always be a shade of orange. I can add red and yellow, but I want all of them to be a shade of orange. I'm not going to add blue to any of them, at least not this time. Like, you know, you could do that, but so again, I'm trying to focus on a lighter green on a lot of these. And then I can do a layer where I use more of the dark green because I do want some overlap here. And you can, I have done them before where I have a cluster of green, almost like a cloud of green. I'm not doing that on this one, but that can look good too. Oops, I have a lot of darker green on this one. And when I do these, I'm focusing on like 2 little brush strokes. This plate. I'm sure that noise is getting annoying. And see, these ones I knew I was going to overlap, so I grabbed a little darker green because I knew I was going to go kind of over some of my lighter green. So I grabbed a darker green up there. I'm going to grab a little darker green. And you, like, again, so green is made up of yellow and blue. So instead of using 2 shades of green, I could go in and use, you know, make some of these leaves. Actually, I could add a little blue to some of these leaves, a little yellow to some of these leaves, being a little careful with the yellow because sometimes yellow can, again, make them look like they're kind of dying. So I'm going to be a little careful with the yellow, but yeah, it doesn't have to be 2 shades of green. And I think color is one area where when I'm teaching classes, I try to give people a lot of flexibility because I find it to be more fun and an easy way to make your piece unique, especially if you get those, there's not a lot of color wheel facts you have to know, but as long as you know what you're doing, you know, again, like with green, okay, I can add yellow or green to it to just create a different shade of green. But you don't want to add purple to green. That's going to make a brownish color. So you don't necessarily, you want to be careful of that, you know. Because typically I try to avoid brown, or at least brown in excess. So just little tiny like color wheel facts that really, really help your piece look good. So I'm going to do again, endless amounts of green here. You can do endless amounts of leaves. I'll do a few more over here. I'm gonna do a little bit more. Where's my pointy? There we go. Now I'm gonna go in with my brown. Add a little bit of the stem there. I'm gonna put a little stem here. And there are places, I mean, I could go in here. So I could leave this little, I don't know how well you can see this little space here. I could leave that blank. I'm going to go ahead and go put a little stem in there. There we go. Okay. I'm going to put some more oranges on it. Again, going back and forth. I am going to go in too and just add a little orange to some of my oranges too. Glaze, if I was doing acrylics, I wouldn't necessarily do this. You can go in and do a little red highlight too. But with glaze, it's all about the number of layers you put on it. So I want a few layers of orange to get that vibrancy. Okay, so where do I want some more oranges? Let's do a little cluster right here. And really that, I maybe shouldn't have put one there because it's almost like it's coming up off the leaf. That's okay. Okay, maybe one more. Just do one orange right there. I'll do a cluster. You also want to be careful because I want to make sure I'm not removing paint as I do this. So I'm trying to like, and again, that's something that's a little, acrylics, actually all paints can do that to a point, but I find particularly with glazes, you can end up accidentally taking off a layer. So. Okay, so I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna add more leaves now. Looks like. And now I'm doing a little bit more layering on some of these. So doing a little bit more of my dark green. I'm trying to cluster more of the dark green around the edges. And just leaves in general, I want more around the edges. Let me do a lot more. I'm not focused on making every leaf perfect. I'm focused on almost a little bit more of quantity. Making a large quantity of leaves rather than trying to make every single leaf perfect, making sure I have a big collection, a big variety. And variety means some aren't perfect, so I'm gonna do a couple leaves. So I'm a little bit Bob Ross here, but I'm trying to look at where does an orange want to be? Where do I look and feel like there's a need for an orange, or an orange is wanting to be? I'm pretty full. I don't want to overdo it here. I might put a little more orange on this one. I'm feeling actually pretty good. One thing I could do is go in and add some details. I think I'm gonna leave my vase plain today. This would be a time to add some funky details to it, but I think I'm gonna skip that this time. So in one way that's just easier to skip those details, but the other aspect of that too is that it keeps the focus on the tree and the oranges rather than the vase. So again, going in with this dark green, doing a few more dark green leaves in here. Some of them are right on top of my old ones, layers and layers here, creating a little depth. I'm going to do a few more oranges way up here. This is a little barren of oranges. Oops, got in the frame a little bit. Okay. Right there. So you can hear a little bit. We're both working from home, so you might hear a little bit of background noise here. I'll do one more orange right here. will, big pile of green there. This orange needs some leaf friends. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I'm actually pretty happy with that. I want to create a little bit of a shadow of the vase. So that's going to be on the left side. I'm going to do that with a little bit of blue, believe it or not. Try a little bit of this blue. Really, really watered down. Oh, it's a little bit not watered down. It's hard because this is the edge of the plate too. A lot more water to that. Just a little shadow here. It's a lot easier to create super light with little shadowing. And then I am going to sign it as well. And that will be it. Yeah, I think I'm good with that. I don't want to go too overboard. I could do a little bit more. You can always add more leaves in particular. Okay. And like I said, last step here is I will sign this. Where to sign shouldn't be that difficult. I think I might do right here. I mean, I could do right here along the vase, you know, Van Gogh style. But I'm gonna go right here. Okay, thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe. Let me know any projects that you would like to see. And have a great day. Bye.